"Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered," prophesied Zechariah about the coming Christ. This was indeed what happened when the disciples ran in separate ways in fear and trembling after Jesus was arrested and crucified. It must have been beautiful to think that they were at the right hand of the awaited Messiah, who was destined to reign forever and ever over the throne of David. He was in their midst, and they beheld him, saw him, talked with him, ate and drank with him, walked with him, and in his name performed miraculous signs and wonders. Surely he was the promised Messiah, and they were his closest friends. Yet at one dark and dreary eve, it seemed that all their dreams were shattered. The one who was to reign forever and ever was captured, mocked, beaten, spat upon, scourged, crucified, and killed. To the helpless disciples, the beautiful dream of being the disciples of the Savior of Israel was now completely shattered. To them it seemed like the end, a bitter and disappointing confrontation with despair and defeat. Yet the magnitude of bitterness, shock, and disappointment must have been 10 times more than the delight, happiness, and joy of the thought of being the closest friends and disciples of the promised Messiah. The one who was to lead Israel in victory was now humiliated and defeated. The one who was to live forever and ever according to the prophecies was now dead and buried. Not only that, but a large stone was rolled over his tomb, which was sealed and guarded by both Roman soldiers and Jewish guards. The Gospel of St. Matthew tells us, a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph went to Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be delivered. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb. Now the next day, the chief priests and the Pharisees came to Pilate, saying, "Sir, we remember that deceiver said while he was yet alive, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away and say unto the people, 'He is risen from the dead.' So the last deception will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a watch, go your way, make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. According to the Gospel of St. Matthew, after the resurrection of Jesus early Sunday morning, some of the guards went into the city and told the high priests all that had happened. So they met with the elders and agreed on a plan to give the soldiers a large amount of money. They said, "Say that the disciples came at night and stole him while you were sleeping. And if this is reported to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has been spread among the Jews to this day. Let us put aside faith and take a logical and analytical consideration of the accusation that the disciples of Christ actually stole his body while the guards were asleep.
I was influenced by my previous career as a lawyer to defend the faith, the divinity of Christ, and I wrote a big book about the divinity of Christ and about the case for the resurrection, to defend the resurrection. In order to witness in a court of law, the court consider the number of the witnesses, the character of the witnesses, and the interest of the witnesses. We have between 600 and 700 witnesses. There is no case in history that have such first-hand eyewitnesses as the resurrection of Christ.
As Father Augustinus points out in his book, if Christ didn't actually rise from the dead, and his disciples somehow managed to steal his body and claim that he was risen, then a great mystery still remains unsolved. First, where did the terrified disciples get the courage to risk their lives by confronting Roman and Jewish guards in an attempt to steal the body of Jesus, after they'd been filled with fear and trembling and each ran his own way? Second, How did the legion of Roman guards all manage to sleep at the same time, knowing that their very lives depended on securing the body of Jesus?
It is impossible to imagine that 100 soldiers may fall asleep at the same time.
Third, even if the Roman soldiers all somehow slept at the same time, how did the disciples manage to roll away the stone without waking any of the sleeping soldiers? Fourth, what would the disciples have to gain by stealing the body, claiming a resurrection, and fostering a lie? For they themselves were persecuted and ultimately put to death for continuing to preach the resurrection. Fifth, if the disciples really stole the body, why were they not arrested for doing so? Also, during Roman times, a Roman guard on duty who failed to secure a prisoner, allowing that prisoner to escape somehow, was penalized by execution. Why then weren't the guards executed for their negligence to secure the body of Jesus? Ironically, neither the disciples were arrested for stealing the body, nor were any of the guards executed for their negligence to secure the body. Sixth, as Father Agostinos also points out, if over 70 Roman and Jewish guards managed to all fall asleep at the same time,
how did they know that his disciples were the ones who stole his body? Does the court accept a testimony from a sleeping witness? This is considered a contempt to the court.
Seventh, why wasn't a search for the body of Jesus conducted in Jerusalem in order to disprove the allegation of his disciples that he was risen?
Jerusalem was a small city, and there was no fast means of transportations, no flights, no cars. So where did they put the body?